My name is Chris Stone. I'm the creator of Blood and Bone China, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of GenreTainment here at SciFiPulseRadio.com. We're your hosts, Marx
and Julie, and today we are speaking to the cast and crew of the supernatural thriller series Malice. Writer-director Philip Cook joins us with the cast members Mark Hyde, who plays Nate Turner, and Rebekkah Johnson, who plays Abbey Tuner, to talk about this action thriller, which follows teens Alice and Abbey, who must solve mysteries and survive dangers emanating from their late grandmother's home.
We learn how this series was created, some behind-the-scenes stories about filming, and much more.
Now, before we get started with the interview, we just wanted to point out that the music you just heard at the beginning of the show was a snippet from the theme song for our web series, Reality on Demand, a song composed and performed by our friend T. Sean Hardy. You can find our web series at realityondemandseries.com.
Now let's get started with our featured interview for today with the cast and crew of Malice.
Being a teenager sucks. There's a shocking revelation, huh? But right now that's the least of my problems. How did it come to this?
You're listening to GenreTainment, and this is Marx
and Julie, and today we're speaking with the cast and crew of Malice, the web series. Now, it's a creepy series about a family fighting for their lives against supernatural forces after they move into their late grandmother's home. Now, we have with us today creator Phil Cook, actors Rebekkah Johnson, who plays Abbey, and Mark Hyde, who plays Dad.
Well, for those who haven't seen the show, Phil, can you tell us in your own words what the series is about?
Well, on the surface, it looks like a poltergeist type of show. And the setup is almost in the sort of classic cliche about a family moves into a spooky house and weird things start to happen. And we kind of set it up that way to sort of get people on a comfort level and going, oh, it's one of those. Mm-hmm. But once you get past the first episode, you start to realize it isn't one of those. And the show slowly starts to become something very, very different. And the whole premise of the thing was sort of kind of structured almost like Lost, the TV show, where at the end there's always a hook, and hopefully a hook of like, what the heck was all that about? And hopefully compels the audience to click the next button and watch the next episode.
Great. Yeah, I know. I think the hooks worked well.
Mm-hmm.
Julie's like, let's watch the next episode. Let's watch the next episode.
we sat down and watched them all in a row, so it actually worked out really well.
Have you've seen them all the way through the end?
I think. Is there 10 episodes? Is that right?
No, there are 12. Believe me, you'll know when you see the end.
Oh, I guess we haven't seen it.
Oh, we didn't see it. Oh, well, at least have something with
you. You haven't. Believe me, you will know when you see the end. It's going to be, oh my gosh. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, well, for Rebekkah and Mark, can you tell us a little bit about each one of your characters, please?
Ladies first.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I play Abbey Tuner. I'm the eldest sibling of the family, which is kind of funny because Brittany's actually older than I am. But I play the eldest sibling, and yeah, that's all that matters really in TV land, I suppose. Yeah, so I'm kind of the bitchy, sarcastic, sort of off-putting, I guess you could say, older sister that could really give two craps about what happens to anybody but herself. But in the most appealing way possible, hopefully. But yeah, just kind of hoping. I guess my character is just kind of hoping that if she can shove it all under the carpet or something, it'll go away. But it doesn't really work out.
As far as mine, I play Nate Turner, the father of the family, and the character, in a nutshell, is a returning combat veteran from Afghanistan and the Middle East, and he's coming back to the family and readjusting. And there's a lot of backstory that you kind of pick up on, but there's never really touched upon. But obviously he's dealt with some issues in the past that are starting to come up again now that they've moved to this new house, and he seems somewhat familiar with it and is ready to deal with it, without giving too much away. He's aware that there are some strange things in the past with his wife, the mom, played by Leanna, and that he tries to prepare his daughters to be ready for what's going to come, what he knows is going to come, I guess. In a nutshell, too, it's a little bit, not that I've had this happening, but it's a bit of a biopic. Phil's always picking my brain and backstory and experiences for material. So he likes to use a little bit of what I've actually been through and incorporate that into the character. So it's a little bit of me in there as well.
Yeah, so that's interesting. We were wondering, Mark, if you actually do have a military background yourself.
I do. I'm a former Navy SEAL, and I served over in the Middle East. Did a few tours over there, over in the first Gulf War back in the 90s, and even before then, I deployed over there. So the character actually is a SEAL, that Nate Turner. So he's taking a little bit of my bio for that.
Yeah, that's interesting because we did see the, the PSA where you were,
during 4th of July.
Yeah, 4th of
July.
For the
Navy SEAL Foundation.
Yeah. Do you want to mention a little bit about that?
Funny thing was, we shot that in a very short amount of time. Rebekkah and I did. Brittany and I did. The same day, we also shot another short. It was a whirlwind production weekend for us, but that really meant a lot to me. The SEAL teams, they were and they are such a transitional experience for me, and it made me who and what I am. And once a SEAL, I think always a SEAL. But I firmly am in support of the Navy SEAL Foundation. They are there for returning vets, family members, survivors from active duty and veterans, and they're there to provide financial, moral support, encouragement, all types of different support. It's one of the best charities out there.
Yeah, that's great.
Anything I could do to support that.
Now, obviously, then you were pretty comfortable with the rather extensive arsenal in this family's home.
I'm not breaking in that house.
Yeah. Now, Rebekkah, how long because you looked pretty comfortable handling that gun as well, Rebekkah. So how did that feel to you? How long did it take you to get accustomed to it?
Well, I actually shot a BB gun at camp one time, like a million years ago. Actually, no. So I'm pro. No, actually, Mark is a really good teacher when it comes to that sort of thing. And then I just took whatever critique that Phil had for me to be like, that doesn't look realistic. You probably wouldn't, your shoulder would be jerking back and that sort of thing. So I was kind of at first was like, oh yeah, the gun, it's shooting. I don't have to do anything. But then I was like, your body actually has a reaction to that sort of, intense pressure.
So what kinds of guns were they that you used for the actual filming? I mean, did you find some airsoft ones that looked like?
No, it's funny, they're replica weapons, believe it or not, that a friend of mine bought back in high school, and we're talking a long time ago. And I don't even think you can buy them anymore because they're incredibly realistic. They're actually heavier than real weapons, but they're made out of metal. And they all have
just for the record, there were never any real weapons on the set.
No, there were never any real weapons on the set. That's absolutely
good. Thanks for clarifying. We figured, but you're right. Some people might not know that.
Right. Well, exactly. And it was shot in Falls Church, Virginia, which is in the shadow of Washington, D.C. So the idea of setting off this arsenal in the middle of this residential neighborhood would definitely have been a big no-no. But Mark was really helpful because it's interesting. It's really kind of funny because when the girls, particularly Brittany, when he was trying to teach her how to use the gun, she was clueless, beyond clueless. She's such a girly girl. And when Mark would pick up a weapon and hold this weapon, obviously you sort of back up a couple of steps because all of a sudden there's just something about the posture, there's something about the serious intent and the body language that is incredibly threatening when somebody knows what they're doing. And he did a pretty good job of getting Rebekkah to mimic that, and Brittany as well. And Brittany's so tiny. It's funny, the gun almost weighs as much as she does. It is interesting because he sells it. So he was sort of my on-stage technical advisor in that regard.
Well, Rebekkah and Mark, how did you first get involved in the production? Was there a casting call? Did you already know Phil?
Oh, okay. Well, I actually found this on Craigslist. Interesting story, because I got the I sent an email. It's like, yeah, I'm interested. I want to, like, I got nothing else going on with my summer. Like, let's be in a film. Actually, I was more stoked than that. But, like, I got the email, like, oh, yeah, come in for the audition. And I went with my mom, like, kind of safety. And I got, like, I was looking at my email. It's like, yeah, come to the garage. And, we'll go ahead and do the audition. I was like, the garage. And I thought it was going to be, like, a corporate place. And then, like, I'm driving through the weird end of Falls Church because, of course, I have one of those GPSs. And then I'm like, and I got there. And, of course, it's, like, the most fantastic above garage, air-conditioned in the middle of summer, thank God, office. And then it was very, very non-threatening. And I was so excited about the whole idea. And I was super crazy stoked about it. And so that was my luck with Craigslist. So never put that on the back burner, I suppose.
The ad posted, I
Far
I
away
tried
the
to be
future.
diligent as possible, but it's basically local filmmaker looking for young girls to be in a horror web series. Please come to the garage. It was a little more direct than that. And I said, bring your mom, bring your boyfriend, get your comfort level. But to put the garage in context, it's actually the building. If you've seen the show, there's this other building behind the main house, and that's where all the interviews took place.
Yeah.
Better than saying, come to the basement.
Yeah.
That's right. It's where we keep Ghost Boy chained to the hot water heater.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think if I was a teenage girl and asked my parents to go do that audition, I think they'd still be laughing to this day. Like, no, you're not going to some stranger's garage. Okay, Mark?
Well, I actually had known Phil for a while. I met him through a mutual friend, a guy named Walter Suarez, who's a former, he's retired Navy. He has a science, I guess you'd call it, prop and stunt effects company where he provides some of the prop weapons. And back then when we made this first movie I worked on with Phil, we did a lot of physical effects instead of just the CG. We had props and models, and so Walter brought me up to help him set some charges and demo. And actually, I just met Phil through Walter. Is just kind of been coming up to meet him to go over what we were going to do on this film. And we got to talking, and he kind of sized me up. And I just left the Navy, and I was taking classes. I was training as an actor, but I was a novice. But he asked me if I wanted to work in front of the camera as well. And so I took a dual role as Jeff the Jumper and a Shadow Man in his film Despiser. But from there, we realized we had a lot in common. We really hit it off, and we've been best friends ever since. I have to say that production was more valuable, and I learned more on that than any film or acting school could ever have gone to, because film he's an incredible talent in front of and behind the camera himself. But he builds sets. He's an artist. He does matte paintings. Just besides all of the CG that a lot of people have been blown away from that he does. He's a model maker. Some of the models he's made are incredible. He did scale models of these creatures in some of his earlier films that he still has in his office. They're just incredibly detailed. I think he's got an eye for the lighting, the sound. I also, on that show, I dabbled as a sound recordist. I did some stunts. I did advising on that as well. And I worked with his crew, and I learned all the behind the scenes. I learned, grip, just regular general grip work and lighting and a little bit of camera operation, obviously sound mixing. And it was just an incredibly great learning experience, and I made a wonderful friend from it. And over the years, like I said, he's kind of fixed my brain for information material, and, part of this character he developed with me in mind. So I was certainly, of course, eager and ready to jump on the chance to work with him again in this project.
Great. And I feel this is a pretty trippy show.
Yeah.
When did you come up with the concept, and why did you decide to turn it into a web series versus a more traditional feature film route?
Well, basically, my first feature film I made when I was 23, and that was, back in the 80s. And back in the 80s, you could make an independent film and have a snowball's chance of getting it in a movie theater. Think of Evil Dead and various other films like that. And everything I made was a genre picture. But when the 90s came along, it was really hard to get a movie in the movie theater. So I made another film called Invader, and that was on Showtime, HBO, and Cinemax. And so back in the 90s, you could get a film on it, with no names, by the way, with no stars, without a huge budget. You could get a show on cable. And you could get a show on the Sci-Fi Channel, which I did. Then the 2000s came along, and I realized I couldn't get a film in the theater anymore. It was impossible. It was just locked up and too expensive. It wasn't likely I could get a film on cable, but there was still 35,000 Blockbuster stores and 25,000 Hollywood video stores. So my third film, Despiser, we sold DVDs to 55,000 video stores all across America. So that was still a business. You could still make money. Well, here it is in the enlightened age of today. You can't get a movie in the movie theater. You can't get a movie without any names or some sort of, serious connection with the mainstream thing on cable or TV. And all the video stores are gone.
Mm-hmm.
What's left? What's left is the web. And then, well, how does this work? So I started thinking about this 2 years ago. It was actually in April 2 years ago that I started writing the script. And I did some research on web series, and there really weren't a lot of them out there. But, you've seen the landscape of web series. I mean, most of them, quite frankly, are pretty awful. And I came across The Guild, Felicia Day's The Guild, and I thought, wow, this is funny. This is clever. The writing is tight. This is actually amusing, and I was sort of inspired by that. But like anything on YouTube or whatever, you can never knock off something somebody else has done. Everything succeeds for its own unique reasons. So I'm thinking, well, what are my skill sets? What can I do? Is there a business here? Can we find an audience? Can we make this work? So like everything I've ever done, I go into it really naive. It's like, yeah, we'll make a movie. We'll get it in a theater. Well, we did. We'll make a movie. We'll get it on cable. Well, we did. We'll make a movie. We'll get it in a video store. We did. Well, I'm thinking, all right, well, I'm stupid. Let's make a web series and see if we can get it out there. So we did, but having looked at a lot of them, I realized that web series, they think that you can work half as hard, and it could be half as good as what's going on TV if you're lucky. And I have a completely different philosophy. My feeling is, because generally for the most part these things are seen on a computer, you have to work twice as hard as TV. Your writing, your shooting, your storytelling has to be twice as tight, twice as succinct, and twice as effective. There can be no fat. Everything is in there for a reason. You can't, just because you got a kitchen doesn't mean I need to see your character speak for 8.5 minutes in the kitchen when everything was said in the first 15 seconds.
Yeah.
So that was my whole point. No fat, zero fat. Every frame that can come out, take it out. Just keep it moving, keep it interesting, keep it compelling, keep the audience wanting more. And when it's over, they go, holy crap, that was 6 minutes. I'm willing to watch this again. There's so much going on in the show.
And that speaks to the difference in the attention span, by the way, between the computer viewer and the television viewer.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. On a computer, to me, a computer still is a working tool. And when someone sends me a video link, I'm always a little reluctant to click on it because it's like, well, how long is this going to take? And when you're in TV, when you're in front of the TV, you're in for the long haul. You're willing to put up with commercials. You're willing to put up with some fat. But on the web, it's like you're one mouse click away from distraction. Mm-hmm. So, I tried to create something that was really tight, very succinct, and hopefully keep the audience guessing and try to kind of pander to some of the genre expectations and then turn them on their ear. It's like, oh, it's one of those. And then you take that trope and you kind of, oh, wait, no, it's not one of those. So try to keep people guessing. Okay. I don't know if I answered.
Yeah. Now, how many seasons and episodes do you have for all of our listeners out there? And when can we expect more?
Well, there are 2 seasons and 12 episodes, and then we created a special episode which will play after the 12 episodes, which includes some of the same characters but in a completely different context. So ultimately there are 12 episodes to tell this story arc about what happened to this family when they moved to this house and what the heck is going on here, and is anybody going to walk out of it alive? So there are 12 pieces, and all of them are currently available on Coldcast TV, but all of them will also be available on YouTube by the middle of March. So, and they'll all be available on Blip TV in the middle of March as well.
So you have one more coming out to finish up the.
On YouTube, I think we got 3. On Coldcast, they're all up. And on Blip, I think we have 3 more to go up there as well. And then there's the special, so there's kind of 4. And then, getting back to the future, that's a very good question. And, we've been doing a lot of soul searching on should there be a future. I think we're very fortunate in that this was a self-financed project, which I imagine the various projects you've been involved with probably are the same. I don't really know. But we're fortunate enough that I think we're probably going to break even on our out-of-pocket expenses. But what isn't going to be accounted for are I have no idea how many. I've got a year of my life in this show. And, Mark and I and various others were talking about, well, this right now web series aren't really a business. I mean, it's great to find an audience. It's great that people want more. But in the end of days, I still got to pay my electrical bill. This is not doing it. And
you can't just mail back like, I'm a web series creator, give me a pass.
Right.
Well, exactly. And this is the thing, actually, which is why I actually do love our YouTube audience, because our YouTube audience is a very passionate audience. And they seek these things out because they actually like the show, and they're vocal, good or bad. They're yapping, they're talking, they're interacting. I mean, they're actually watching. And, it's not a huge, I think we've got like 1,300 subscribers right now on the YouTube channel. And that was built from absolute zero. I mean, none of us are celebrities. We don't have an endorsement from Stephen King. Neil Gaiman has not written us a review and said, you guys got to watch this. Felicia Day hasn't grandfathered us. So everything we've done, as the analogy I've used with Mark, we're like pioneers with one lonely axe hacking our way through a primal American wilderness. And we've carved a pretty decent path, but it's a wilderness nonetheless. And, if we had 10,000 YouTube supporters, I think, and if 10,000 of them were willing to support us for $10 a year, then at least people are making a little bit of money, and this thing could move forward. 1,300, they're good people, but it's just, out of that, maybe half of them might give you $10. And it just isn't going to get you very far. And it's hard, trying to make this make sense. And mind you, we're producing a pretty good quality show for a fraction of what mainstream TV is being made for. And even we're having a hard time making it. So I would love to do a 3rd and 4th season. I already know what the story is. I think it would take this show on a completely another level of depth and take people to some really surprising directions. I just don't know how that works yet. There's a lot to be figured out.
Well, the 2 of us would be thrilled if you made more, because we really like it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, here's a question that's been burning in my mind since we first saw it. Whose adorable little bunny rabbit is that in the show?
Oh, that's Plot Bunny. That's actually our rabbit. The house is my house.
Oh, okay.
So the rabbit is our rabbit, and it's funny. My wife, she's a romance writer, or she's been working on romance novels, and I don't know. She's into rabbits, and somehow she came across this idea of plot bunnies. And so when we finally, it's funny. This rabbit, God wanted us to have this rabbit because it just showed up in our yard one day, literally.
Oh my gosh!
My youngest daughter, who was kind of the inspiration for Alice, said, "I really want a bunny," and she would create these PowerPoint presentations of how desperately I want a bunny. I'm going, "Nah, we're not going to get a bunny." And one literally, and I'm not kidding you, literally showed up in our back. Actually, 3 of them did. And I think somebody just turned these pets out.
Oh,
and
that's horrible.
The 2 of them we gave to a bunny rescue, and we kept the 3rd one. And so that's Plot Bunny. And to some extent, it kind of became the little totem, little icon of the show. I mean, it shows up. There's a stuffy of Plot Bunny, and the T-shirt, and the bunny hat.
And the hat, yeah. Well, we have a rabbit, and she's our second.
Oh.
We had a rabbit before her, and so we love. I especially adore rabbits. I was like, oh, they have a rabbit. That is so cool. And we had to ask whose rabbit it is. So.
Well, then, do you know about the website Disapproving Bunnies or Disapproving Rabbits?
I have not seen that.
Oh, you have to go.
No, okay.
Absolutely love it because they have rabbits inherently look cranky.
They can give you a look like you wouldn't believe.
You will find the most adorable photos and anecdotal stories about people who are really into their rabbits. And if you really like your rabbits, you're going to get lost in that website.
Oh, thank you. I have to check it out. Sometimes ours just kind of looks at us like, I can't believe I have such embarrassing parents.
Well, exactly. And they have such different personalities. I mean, I'm not quite into them as much as my kids are, but they, some of them are aggressive. Some of them just sit there like a lump. Some of them are very inquisitive and very explorative. This rabbit, by the way, Rebekkah, and the rabbit, I believe, don't get along too well.
He does not like me. It is. Oh Lord.
Oh, so you had some fun times.
Yeah. I spent several nights, crashing at their place because it was, easier than like going back and forth from where I lived. And the little side room where the bunny is, I used to have a bunny, and I'm usually pretty good with animals. But like, I went to go say hi to Plot Bunny, and he charged me. Like he like lunged at me, and then like the rest of the night he would make like little sounds to be like, "Hey, I'm here and I'm watching you." And so I was just like sitting on the couch like, "Okay, Plot Bunny, you just stay in your cage, and I'll just."
That's funny.
It was so bad.
And so you mentioned the hats. We also caught on to the hats. Where did you come up with that, and who made those?
Well, my wife made them. It's funny. To some extent, Alice was inspired by this photograph. It's actually on my Facebook page of my youngest daughter, Roxanne. And Roxanne had this frog hat, and there was this photo of her walking on a beach, and she just had this tough, badass looking over her shoulder kind of stare, and I thought, that's a great photo. So I went and I took a M16 rifle and I photoshopped it in over her shoulder. So all of a sudden you got this badass kid walking down the beach, shouldering an M16 rifle, looking over her shoulder with this frog hat. And I thought, that's a story. And so then I started writing the story, and initially it was going to be a frog hat. And then the further I got into the sort of Alice in Wonderland thing, I thought, it should be a rabbit, and it slowly became this sort of dark, macabre rabbit motif. And we spent a couple of days trying to come up with this icon that hopefully could kind of be kind of hip, and was hopefully with time sort of take on a life of its own, which is on these. You can find we sell these T-shirts. You can get these things on. And then my wife came up with this idea of these rabbit hats, which are all these different colors on, and she made those. And she also made the stuffed animal, which was quite beautiful.
That is a gorgeous one. We thought that was a really nice touch. There's either a shirt or a hat or a stuffed rabbit or a real rabbit. Plot funny.
Merchandise.
Yeah, and we call him Battle Bunny. That's the icon. And one thing that doesn't come out in the show was the evolution of what Battle Bunny is, and it's this sort of the symbol for wounded veterans that Alice sort of glommed onto. It's something that never comes up in the episode. If we develop it further down the line, that plot point might come out. But so anyway, that's why he turned from a frog to a rabbit, and then the rabbit motif.
Well, you have our approval.
And sort of Alice is the defender of innocent little things, little bunnies. With her machine gun and her badass black bunny hat.
So you sell the shirts. Do you sell hats too?
No.
Oh.
We would love to, but here's the thing with the hats. Everybody asks me about that because they're custom made, right? It's like
I think one of them was a prize, though, right?
They were. We auctioned them off for a Kickstarter campaign, and they went quick. I mean, people wanted those hats. There were only 2 of them. But the thing is, for me to get into a product, I'd have to find a company in China. I'd have to contract 10,000 of them. Assuming I can say I get them made for $3 each. Now I'm into $30,000, and I'm going to sell 20 of them, and I'm going to have 18,000 bunny hats in my garage, and be another $12,000 in debt. And
but your head will never go cold.
That's right. So people say, oh, it's like, and if we made them by hand, to justify that, they would probably cost $30, $40 each. Who wants to pay $30 or $40 for a bunny hat? So
I don't know. Hats, but your wife would have carpal tunnel by the time she was
Exactly. Believe me, it would not happen. I can tell you that for a fact. It was pulling teeth to get this stuff on the set on the day we needed it. I mean, everything was coming in, like literally stuff was coming in. It would come out of the sewing machine and go on the set like almost immediately in the beginning. Once it was made, it was made. But yeah, it was
We're wondering for each of you, what was your favorite episode to work on and why?
Who wants to take that first?
You go, Rebekah.
All right. My favorite episode, I would have to say, oh, Lord, that's a very involved question. Okay, I'm going to pick the one where we were outside shooting the guns. Mm-hmm. That was pretty fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
That was great, and that one was all about you, too. That was your best, your most screen time. And you have, Abby was, I'm going to interrupt for one quick second. Her role was the most fun to audition because she had all the great lines, all this snappy little banter. And anyway, you go for, and that episode was all about her, just her snappiness, her cattiness, her, just all about it. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, I guess that explains why it's my favorite. No, I really enjoyed like how we were all like in one scene together. It was kind of like the family bonding scene, the messed up family bonding scene. Where it's like, well, our world is ending. Let's go out with a bang, I suppose. But I don't know. It was just really fun, and just going back and forth. I like dialogue-wise. I enjoyed that the most. Like, I mean, I love the whole script. It was really well written. But like that scene, just like the whole emotional connection, really got me. You know, and I had a lot of fun, like playing the part of, you know, like, oh, this is where her, you know, Abby's whole facade of I'm tough and I really don't give a shit about anything, you know, kind of crumbles. So I really enjoyed that. And plus, of course, holding the guns and, you know, intending to shoot stuff is awesome. Yeah, it was really cool. And a little fun fact, actually, the entire time that Brittany and I were there, like we were like, because Phil would have us walk up to the mark, you know, and be like, pause there, you know, stay away from Dad, he's got a gun. Brittany keeps, like, talking about, like, oh, my goodness, Mark looks like he should be in a Gene commercial. Or, no, he should be selling a grill. Or he should be selling, like, tires. Oh, my goodness. And I couldn't stop laughing. So every time we came up to the mark, if you notice, my face looks a little like I'm trying to hide something. It's the laughter. So that was my favorite.
Well, I have to agree. That was a great scene. That was a pretty involved scene for all of us too, because the Phil did a lot of coverage on that, and I took the better portion of the day with that. And I guess there were some lighting issues and some sound issues with the neighbor's dog. In fact, that ended up in, I believe, a short that Phil made just for that, or a little clip from that, some outtakes. That was actually a good scene. I also liked the same, for the same reason, all of us in the kitchen. I believe it was the night. Well, for those that haven't seen it, I don't want to say, but there's a kitchen scene where we're standing around discussing the events so far and what's going on, and it was just nice. It was, you could kind of see more of a connection there, and it seemed very sincere and genuine that, you know, the relationship here, and it was just a nice moment to kind of interact as a family, even with all of this weird stuff going on around us. So,
yeah, you all had really good family chemistry.
I think we did. I have to say, too, as far as just fun goes, there's this one scene where Rebekah and I think it was just Rebekah and I in this one scene, and it was kind of a Brittany, Alice fantasy flashback type scene, where there's it's a night scene, and I'm in all this Roman armor, and she's my daughter, princess daughter, but she gets dragged away, and that was so much fun. Yeah, it was fun. It was so fun, but the end result is just incredible based on how we did it and what we did. What Phil did with that was just amazing, just incredible. The finished product is amazing. So that was a lot of fun doing that night. Where I think was it you, Rebekah, and Courtney both had some wires tied around my wrist to simulate being torn apart. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the bungee cords like wrapped around your wrist, right, pulling you back. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't think you guys have seen that. That's episode 11. So.
I know. We got done with the 10. I was like, there has to be more. It can't just stop right there. But it didn't, it had been reloading all of the episodes one right after the other.
We saw it on Blip.
We saw it on Blip.
So that's why we didn't see the other two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I'm glad we have something.
The other two, it definitely it's escalation from that point, and they're long episodes. When I say longer than most, they're like 10 or 11-minute episodes.
Can I say, as far as favorite episodes, I have to, and I'm not even in it. In fact, no one's in it but Brittany. But I think it was 9 or 10. I'm not sure, but it's a very short episode. It's absolutely beautiful. It starts off with this time-elapsed video of the mushroom and the house in the background, and then it goes into the house, and there's this time elapse. And it's just art. It's like art in motion, and it's just beautifully done. The music's incredible. As I said earlier, Phil's a consummate artist in all genres. His music selection's incredible, and I just thought it was really well done. It's a great showpiece case for Brittany, I thought, because she looks amazing, and just the kind of haunting and melancholy look that she has throughout this short little 2-minute episode is very compelling. I thought it was probably one of the best episodes of the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, it is sort of a serious, but it has its comedic moments, obviously, especially with the dialogue. But now when you were shooting, are there any sort of funny stories that stick out in your mind that you'd like to share, each of you?
Besides the killer bunny rabbit.
The killer bunny rabbit. Little flat bunny.
There's this one moment I actually find Mark rather funny, even though when you meet him, he seems like a really dry kind of sense of humor. There's this one scene, which you guys probably did see, where he's all alone in the house. He's cleaning these muddy, bloody words off the wall, and the back door creaks into the basement. He goes down in the basement, and sprayed all over the wall are these words, "You were not wanted." And he goes, "What the fuck?" And the way he says it, I just could not keep myself from laughing. I'm shooting this thing, and all of a sudden he goes, "Blah!" He's blowing the tank. And then I hear my makeup artist upstairs. She starts losing it. There's just something funny about this big guy going down there, and he's getting weirded out by this little ghost, and in this statement, I found it hysterically funny. We did at least 3 or 4 extra takes just because I was ruining them. And I was trying to shoot them, and it was just cracking me up. So that's one that comes to me.
Anyone else?
How about you, Rebekah and Mark?
I'm trying to think. There's so many awesome. Oh, okay, yeah, I remember. When the first family meal that we have, where the tuna, whatever that disgustingness was, I think it took us half an hour to just get over what it looked like before we could start filming, because it just had this, it smelled rank, and it had this presence, if you can, from what you saw on online, just imagine that multiplied by 10 in your face in person. And of course, Brittany, being the ballsy one she is, she decides she's going to take a piece and try it. And the way it just flopped onto her plate, I almost died. It was so ridiculous. And she tried it. Oh God, that girl. I lost it. I completely lost it there.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
One funny afternoon in general was just in the show, the character Alice has got, it's never really fully explained, so everybody can take it for what they want, but she has these either flashbacks or memories or fantasies or whatever, and its dad is this Roman soldier. Well, we actually ended up getting a lot of these Roman reenactors over at the house, and we did quite a few really, really cool scenes with them, but eventually towards the end of the day, all these guys dressed as Roman soldiers, and we're in the back, we're doing some fight scenes and a lot of yelling and shouting. Well, you look out on the sidewalk, and the neighbors have started to gather, and they're watching all of these guys running around the backyard screaming and shouting and fighting as Romans. It's actually kind of funny. And that too, I suppose you could say that was the only time there were actually real weapons on the set, because there were some real spears and swords there. But it was just funny because you look up and all of a sudden, there's all these neighbors standing out on the sidewalk watching us go through the these Roman battle scenes.
You don't see that every day.
No, you don't.
No.
You should. That would be fun. It'd be fun.
But those guys, by the way, were incredible. Some of those guys showed up, and they couldn't have looked any more real than if we'd gone back 2,000 years ago and brought them to the future, because they went so much to those scenes, just coming. I mean, they fully immersed in their own gear. They took the time out to come out there and do this for us, and I'm glad they did, because just showing up and being part of that gave so much more gravitas to the scenes. Having them back there with us.
I was going to ask about the costumes.
Yeah.
So is that how you got your costume?
No. Yeah. Phil actually provided most of, all of my, as far as the Roman material goes, he provided all of that. And Helen, his wife, that's when she was doing a lot of seamstress work to make it fit. But all those guys, they showed up with all their own gear and props, and they looked incredible.
So the armor actually was something for a film I was going to make like 10 years ago, and I bought all this Roman armor, like 8 suits of armor, which sat packed in grease in these crates forever. And so I wrote this scene, finally trying to use some of this stuff. And so Mark's outfit, we had the armor, and then we made the rest of it. And then the Queen's outfit, we actually made that from scratch, and that was literally one of those things where the actress was being sewn into it the day of the shoot. But we for the most part, the actors, I think, wore a lot of their own clothes for the bulk of it, except for the fantastic stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, God bless your wife for everything, huh?
Yeah, she's really quite talented. She bitches at me about it, but she really enjoys it. The problem is she has a regular job, a regular 9-to-5 job, and here we are at film camp at my house one whole summer while we're shooting this thing.
She's a patient, understanding woman.
She is, and we've got literally we've taken over the whole house and turned it into a movie studio, and Rebekkah's with us, and Mark's staying with us, and we didn't have a very big crew, but it was just basically film camp for like 2 months in the summer while we were shooting this thing. But it was a huge amount of fun. I mean, it was really quite a big ongoing party, I would say, the entire time. These people all become part of my family. I mean, I will say that absolutely sincerely. Mm-hmm. And I had a blast. I mean, it was really hard. I mean, this was a really hard show, but everybody was so into it, and just, whatever we can do to make it as good as we possibly can. And I don't know, maybe that shows. I think it does. But, the longer that, if you're not going to make much money, which nobody did, at least, you try to eat well and you try to have a good time. Mm-hmm. And people will keep coming back if those two things are happening. You got to feed them and you got to have fun. Because if it's miserable and you're not making any money, what the heck are you doing it for?
That is an excellent point.
That's one of the nice things, at least, too, about as far as web series goes versus a film or a show on TV. You get direct feedback either through the YouTube comments or Facebook or wherever you're getting them from, and good and bad, because whether some of the comments can be negative and they may not be appreciated by everybody, but honestly, they're honest comments, and some of them have valid points, and they can point out none of us have seen before. And so, but it's just getting the direct feedback right away. It's really nice. So that you have people that are not only just passive viewers, but they're actively engaged, and they have enough of an interest to get online and write something about it, good or bad. That shows, a true, sincere interest.
Mm-hmm.
I have to support that. That was really exciting and terrifying about the Kickstarter campaign, which was, we don't know anybody, so, it's not like I have this huge pool of people to tap into. So again, we built those connections one person at a time, but some people got so passionately involved in championing, saving the show. And that was really quite gratifying. These people I don't even know, so they found us, and we've created this little community. They actually cared about the show. They wanted to see it through. And, we're not talking a huge number of people, but the fact that you're making connections to people all over the world, Australia, Denmark, is really quite gratifying and quite wonderful. And that was something, when I went into it, I didn't even anticipate. It doesn't surprise me. But that two-way interaction I've never experienced in anything that I've ever worked on before, which is, I love that. That's the awesome side of websites. It may not be a business, but, but that is also a double-edged curse because to some extent I think people love an underdog. Not that we've had this problem, but I've also seen it turn when an underdog becomes successful. Then people go, oh, then they want to knock it down. Well, we have yet to get to that point. So right now it's been fairly supportive, I would say.
Can I ask roughly what your budget was for the seasons, season 1, season 2?
Yeah, it was, I would say we spent about $1,000 an episode.
That's good.
And really most of that goes towards equipment and food and costumes. Everybody did get paid. It wasn't much, but, the actors were getting paid. Yeah, every actor on the show got paid except Mark. He volunteered. God bless him. He turned down his payment. I love you, Mark.
I love you, man.
But yeah,
well, actually, too, everybody was kind of pulling double duty as well. I mean, Rebekkah was working with Helen making costumes, and I actually tried a little bit of that myself. But
Mark ended up sewing his enemy's pants.
Yeah,
that's good sportsmanship.
I think actually Rebekkah took over and finished mine because I had about 5 stitches in and it looked awful.
I mean, the way it kind of broke down, I think about $4,000 went to pay for cast and crew, and then the other $6,000 went for just unending expenses. I mean, you guys are involved in this. It's really. The rule was spend no money, but obviously, you spend when you have to. I mean, and our crew basically, from a production standpoint, the crew was me, and then I had a guy, Max Heaton, who was, he also plays the deputy. He was my sound recordist. And then I had a young woman, Courtney Westfall, who was my makeup person, and she did this amazing makeup, which you'll see in the last episode, and she also is responsible for Ghost Boy. And she was sort of my grip. And that was it. That was it. The three of us pretty much did everything, and everybody would pitch in, though. It's like, when it came time to move some lights, they would help move some lights or, pull stuff down so we could all get lunch or whatever.
Food is a great motivator on a set.
Yeah. You gotta have food. We're filmmakers, too, so I always like to ask what equipment people use. What kind of camera did you shoot this on?
It was the Panasonic HVX 170.
Oh.
Okay.
Which is a remarkable tool. It's not, the best camera out there, but it was affordable, and if you know what you're doing with it, you can get an amazing picture. And the thing that I liked it over the DSLRs, it's going to be a little tech talk here, is the camera's actually set up for shooting. It's set up to take audio, which a lot of these, the DSLR is a pretty looking camera, but it's audio in that camera is problematic. And this camera also shoots a pretty uncompressed signal, so you can do blue screen and compositing. And it's pretty.
You even had a little Steadicam type rig you put it on.
That's right. We had a little glide cam, which a good deal of the film was shot on. That allowed us to do these just big sweeping moves. I mean, and you'll see more and more of that as the show progresses. I mean, if you've seen the episode, there's one in particular where the camera starts on a spilled Chianti bottle in the middle of the night. It's after the family's had a fight, and it moves and glides all the way up the steps into Alice's room and finds her. It's almost like this ghost POV. And so we did these sort of big sweeping dolly moves with this little glide cam tool.
We really enjoyed
We
that.
actually, Marx and I both pointed out that shot while we were watching it. We're like, oh, that's a really good shot.
Yeah, there are more in the finale. There are these, some big sweeping. I mean, we're just running flat out as fast as we can while poor little Alice is running from something. So you'll see more of that.
And there's lots of visual effects, which
yes.
you do. What's your background in visual effects, and how did you accomplish some of that?
I've been in the animation business. I mean, honestly, going way back to high school, I was making visual effects film back in the days when we actually shot on film. So, that tinkering, trying to make $1 million something for $1.98 is sort of like genetically ingrained in me now for so long. But I started out old school. I did a lot of the early MTV IDs back in the 80s. The breathing M's and all those funky little stop motion ads. I worked on a lot of those. I worked on the first animated rock video for the Alan Parsons project called "Don't Answer Me," when I say, I mean, these weren't my shows. I was among, a multitude of people working on these things back in the 80s when I was a young man. And so we did everything back then with miniatures and stop motion and matte paintings and optical printers and Oxford animation systems. And then all of a sudden Jurassic Park came out, which scared the living crap out of us. It's like, holy crap, this is done with a computer. I mean, we just boggled our minds. We just couldn't even wrap our head around that, because we were doing stop motion puppets. When we needed a dinosaur, we built a stop motion puppet, a la King Kong. And so it was kind of freaking me out, because I saw the end of my world, which I see this now every year, by the way, for different reasons. And I was in a bookstore, and I saw this book, do 3D animation on your PC, and there were 2 little floppy disks in the back. I thought, really? Cool. So I took it back. We're talking in the mid-'90s. I took these floppy disks, I loaded up this 3D software program, and I started teaching myself 3D animation. And I did. And I bluffed my way into animation jobs. Oh yeah, we do 3D animation, not having a clue as to what I was doing. And within a month, we were delivering jobs, and it just kept going from there. And that's kind of how we got into it. So it's all just homeschool, self-taught.
Well, how long does it take to do some of that in post?
Because they were very, very well done effects.
For example, I don't want to give away too much, but there's something in a gel that comes out. I thought that was pretty cool looking. How long did that take?
Oh, you're talking about the thing in the sink?
It was in a jail cell.
Oh, jail cell.
Yeah. Oh, that. Yeah. That was very complicated. That was done in Maya. That was done with the help of a wonderful friend of mine, Corey Collins, whom I've known, like Mark, going back to our Despiser days. That was a lot of research to get that thing to work, and it was painful, I'll be quite frank. And believe me, there's a lot more of that in the finale. Not that thing, but more things related to it. Once it was designed, it was, and functional, actually could do what it's supposed to do. It was fairly simple to manipulate it, to get it to do other stuff. But it was, I'll be quite frank, and a good friend of mine actually did the bulk of that particular thing. It was absolutely painful and excruciating. When you get to the end, when you see more of this thing, particularly when you see the finale, I thought I was going to kill this poor guy, because he was sick anyway. He's got an illness that he's working his way through, and we had this deadline, and I'd call him up, and I felt guilty. It's like, I'm going to kill this poor man, right? Because we needed to this thing had to be right. It was painful, I will say. I mean, there are some shots, particularly when you get to the finale. 3 seconds took 3 days to render.
Oh, wow.
Get some of these things, but it pays off, because I didn't want the show to be, when you get to the end, you go, that's what it's about? That's I just didn't want it to be that, and I think when you finally do get to the bottom of the mystery, you go, that's what it's about? Holy shit, that is freaky. I did not expect that. I'm hoping that's what we achieved.
You living in the noise house?
Our mom inherited it.
Our home now.
The creepy one?
There's weird stuff here, Alice, right? Around this house?
Alice, we need you. And there's Ghost Kid. Ghost Kid's for real?
Dad was worried, but wasn't he telling us?
Mom's gone.
You stay here.
Abby! You know something. You've always known.
I haven't seen shit like that in 30-some years.
No!
Dad's gone.
What?
Where's my sister?
What were you doing there alone with a machine gun?
Am I now a terrorist?
Badass, Alice.
It's not every day one goes down the rabbit hole.
Save me.
I told you what's been happening with me, the hell I've been going through up here.
She's coming.
What is it? What does it want?
You, Alice. It wants you.
I have touched the face of evil. I am Alice.
I hate you, Alice.
I know. I hate you too.
You're crazy.
about you, Mark and Rebekkah? What was it like acting your characters seeing or interacting with these things that you can't see?
Oh, well, I personally didn't really have much interaction with stuff I couldn't see. Even with the whole, when I'm in the later episodes, I'm like covered in like tendrils or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually covered in like this pokey, wiry thing. So I did have a lot to work with.
Okay.
But I've always been pretty good at using my imagination. So, you know, just like, oh, there's a thing in front of me. Eye contact, I guess. I don't know.
But you did well because, like, literally, you know, there are these blue screen shots related to the cemetery, and your nose is like, you know, you're staring off into this big blue background, but you buy it, you believe it, you know. You're looking way beyond.
Honestly, it's not that difficult in the context with well-written scripts with good direction, which we had both of, and you're in character. And you know, any decent one-on-one level actors in character. And if you're in the moment and in character, you're just it doesn't really matter. It's the same as if you were on stage. There's nothing in front of you, and you're going through the motions there. It's just that in such a great context with great story and the direction and everything else, it all combines to give you the end result, which just it looks amazing. And in production quality, it does look amazing on the show. And that's one of the things I'll admit I'm quite proud of, because it does really look amazing. And even though it was made with such a shoestring budget, it was still made with a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and love and dedication. And I think that comes through. And everybody was really, really into their character and trying to give their best when they were doing it. So it wasn't that difficult. It seems, too, though, that's maybe the way of the future for, you know, more and more productions. I just finished a film a couple of weeks ago, and we were doing pickups, and a lot of it was very much the same thing, blue screen, or, you know, a lot of it is going to be finished in post. So you just you're acting with air. Mm-hmm. I guess because of CG and technology, that's probably there's going to be more and more of that in the future.
Oh, so we got Blood and Chrome. We talked to those actors.
Battlestar Galactica, Blood and Chrome.
That's all green screen, virtual sets. And then and I'm going to have the pleasure of working on Aiden 5 soon, which I don't know if you're familiar with Aiden 5, but it's all green screen. So.
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry, what is it, 85?
Aiden 5.
Aiden 5.
A-I-D-E-N.
Oh, Aiden 5. Are you working with those guys?
I will be working with them on season 2, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
He is.
Well, that was that actually a special episode that we shot for Malice. That was pretty much all blue screen, and that was pretty much all Phil.
we did. Have you seen the Malice in Space episode?
Oh no, we haven't.
Is
that the Space 1999?
Yes.
Okay, I saw a little promo. I saw something about it on Facebook, but I haven't watched it yet.
This is good because we have something to look forward to watching again. Because we got done, I go, no, it can't end there.
Yeah, we did this Malice Space 1999 episode.
Oh God, we got to watch that today.
I don't know if you guys remember that old TV show, Space 1999, but it basically takes. Are you familiar with the show?
I've heard
it's been a while. But
I haven't.
Okay,
really.
It has been a while, like 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the concept, but I've not actually watched it.
It's a preposterous concept. We'll just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
But the pilot, this sort of takes in a different direction. Like, you know, we know that the moon's being blown out of orbit through this freak nuclear accident. Well, this is about the story that you didn't see that was going on. So.
I should check that.
And then you ask yourself, how the hell does that tie into Malice? That's a very good question.
You know, probably anything can. You know, you could just everything's because of their problems.
Is it
more of Alice's overactive imagination?
Is it supposed to tie in? Is it really in continuity in some way?
It doesn't tie in with the main narrative, but, you know, my conceit is, at least the setup of the episode is, you know, Dad of that era used to watch this show, and Alice, when she was a little girl, used to sit on his knee and watch it with them, and it's sort of this wild fantasy context. That's all. It doesn't plug into the main narrative. It was just an opportunity to tell a story about the same characters, but in a completely different context.
It was just an opportunity to play.
It was, and what a ridiculous amount of work that went into that play. It was actually for a reunion convention, a Space 99 convention that took place last September in LA, and I got talked into doing it, and put an obscene amount of time into it. But it was fun. We all had a good time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, before we go, I did want to ask, we have a lot of people who listen who are web series creators or actors or filmmakers. So a lot of times we'll ask people who've done these projects if they can give like a big do or don't that you would advise.
Helpful pointers.
Mm-hmm.
Mine would be, make sure your script is tight. Don't fall into the trap of, just because you have access to a kitchen or any set that people actually want to hear people talk for 4 minutes in it. If they're going to talk for 4 minutes in a set, it's got to be really compelling, dynamic stuff. No filler. Don't have filler. Keep it concise. Keep it moving. The booth at the end manages to get away with that. At least I've watched 2 episodes. I don't know that I'd be willing to put up with that for 12. That essentially take place in a diner. But you've got great actors, so that's a little bit different dynamic. No, just keep it tight and lean, and quite frankly, tell us something that we haven't seen before. What's the point in watching a weak retread of something we all know where it's going to go? Who needs to watch that? Who needs to fill up the airwaves or take my time to watch something that shouldn't have been made in the first place? I know that sounds kind of mean, but if you're not going to do anything new or original, why even bother to tell a story? Because no one's going to have the patience for it.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, as far as technology is concerned, I don't think it really matters. I think compelling storytelling can be shot on any medium. It can be shot with an iPhone. It can be shot in standard definition. I mean, that just as long as it's competent and I can hear. Audio tends to be the big weakness on these things. Just make sure your dialogue is as clean as possible. Those are my do's and don'ts.
How about you, Mark and Rebekah? From perhaps an acting perspective, what would you give as a tip?
Well, personally, because it's a web series sort of thing, I was able to get my hands involved in a lot of different aspects of it. In general, I'm crazy about film, so this was a great opportunity. And the likelihood, if I do, fulfill the dream and get all the way out to Cali and all that jazz, the likelihood of being able to be that involved without it being my own production is probably really small. So I really value the experience that I got, and what I was able to pick up from having such like a tight-knit crew. And then also just I don't know, be a team player, I guess, just be a decent person and have fun with it. Don't take your director seriously, but, don't get really, I don't know how to say this. Just be chill, I guess. But, don't freak out if you make a tiny mistake, but at the same time, don't treat it, respect it. Mm-hmm. There we go.
In deference to Rebekkah, she was so helpful in so many ways. She would help cook. She made pancakes. She helped sew. Mm-hmm. She created the costumes for the wedding scene. Oh. So, I mean, that's just an example of what's so wonderful on everybody. It's like, what do you mean? Let's figure it out. How are we going to make this happen? And we're all trying to build something here, and we're all trying to grow it. I don't know if we're going to succeed, but I think the shows, and I think you can kind of sense this, and I think you're probably getting that vibe with, I just drew a blank, Super Knocked Up. It's like people are really into it. They're having fun. Mm-hmm. It's a family, and they're going to get this thing done. They're going to haul this show up the mountain as far and hard as they can in hopes that it'll get some traction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Mark?
Well, I could reiterate what they said. I was kind of spoiled with this because Phil's a longtime friend of mine, and when he wrote the script, he sent it to me directly, and I got to give him some notes and feedback, and he had me in mind for this character. So I had a lot of involvement, and as an actor, more often than not, you don't. You get cast, you show up, and you should know your lines and not bump into the furniture. And basically, that's your involvement. And if you're lucky, you have a little bit more. But with this, it was so nice. And I'd say that people who are making web series probably will have that because they're going to be much more involved, and they'll probably we're wearing several hats. So that level of involvement, it's priceless because it gives you a better understanding not of your character and acting, but the entire production, from the look of it, the art direction, all that type of stuff. And what Rebekkah was saying is basically, don't be a tool on set unless you're going to be a good positive tool. But we don't need any divas, and we don't need anybody causing problems. You need to show up on time, be professional, be helpful, be cheerful. Because it's a very, very tight ship. And it's got to be run that way because the budget's limited, resources are limited. Sometimes if you're on location, you got to get it out, and you're not going to be going back. You may not be invited back. Who knows what. But so you got to be aware of that type of stuff. And from what Phil said earlier, I have to agree. Keep it tight. That was probably one of the best scripts I've ever read, and if he ever posted online, I would recommend it for anybody. It's so visual. I could envision almost every scene quite easily from his writing. It was probably one of the best scripts I've read, and so I think we're pioneering something really unique. It's the next medium. I think eventually everything will be streaming, cable, internet, all of it will be combined. I think David with Coldcast is onto something here. The future probably is going to be some type of culmination of all this stuff coming into just one type of streaming technology. But who knows? Some new technology might come out tomorrow and change the whole thing. But I think we're pioneering something new. But for an industry that claims to worship originality, I just feel like this show offers that in spades. I mean, it does, like Phil said earlier, it gives you that comfortable setting of a poltergeist kind of haunted house story, but it is not that awe. And I just think that the original aspect of it, if nothing else, should be pretty appealing. But as far as an actor goes, pick your material. Just don't work to work, because you might regret taking some jobs. So pick your material, even if it says no, and turning down work. Well, wait for something better, and be involved as much as possible.
Now, you touched on the future web series. I think we did touch on that a little bit with you already, Phil. But is there anything else you want to add about what your views of web series are in the future?
What you envision for its future?
For this future, or in general?
Web series in general.
Well, here's the one thing about web series. I've learned a lot. I find aspects of them very frustrating, and I'm sure not alone in this, where it's difficult. Like, I'm not Freddie Wong. I can't generate an episode of material every month. I mean, he's doing this every week, these anecdotal pieces, and my shows are very complicated, and they take quite a bit of time to produce. And they're probably too complicated for this type of thing. But I do believe they can frustrate an audience. To make the assumption that people they may dig your show, but they may simply not remember to check back on Monday. That's assuming I could even deliver an episode on Monday, which I probably couldn't. So I think it's frustrating to them. It's like, whatever happened to that show? So I think probably the most comfortable way to watch this is sort of binge viewing, where, all 12 segments are done, and you can just click through them 1, 2, 3, 4, and get the whole experience. I mean, there is something fun about, gosh, I wonder what's going to happen next, and having that little bit of a delay, it gives you a chance to sort of ponder it a little bit. But when it gets too long, I think you lose track of your audience, and they kind of drift away.
Because you kind of want to have that water cooler moment week to week, but you don't want it to be too long in between.
I mean, I really wish I could have delivered on a timely basis. I mean, now that they're all done, I am being more scheduled about getting them out on YouTube and such. And I'm my own problem, because I'm wearing so many hats, and I just simply cannot keep up, and actually doing paying work, keep up with the pace of production. So, I love this short story style. I think few people have really done it really well, this 12 5 to 8 minute episode thing, and doing it in such a way that's really compelling, and people don't feel annoyed that they're watching it on their computer. I don't know what the future of it is, because I hate the idea of people watching this on a PDA, sounding like a buzzing bee. Because we put all this work into this widescreen, these big images, and we put a huge amount of work into the sound system, And, you know, I'm glad people are watching it, but the idea of you're watching on a 3-inch screen and it sounds like, you know, people holding their nose talking.
Yeah.
It's like, gosh, you know, I'm busting my butt on these images and you know, and you're watching a basketball game at the same time.
That's an excellent point.
But, you know, everything has its purpose. And I think, you know, in retrospect for companies like YouTube and such, I guess if you could binge, you know, it gives them 12 opportunities for you to have to click through an ad. But I have to tell you, it's a painful way to make money. Mm-hmm. You know, it might work for Freddie Wong, who's pulling in, I don't know what he's getting, 2, 3, 4 million views a month. I mean, that puts him in business. I'm not getting anywhere near that, so I'm not in business. Mm-hmm. I would love to think that the model could be what television used to be in the 50s and 60s, where Malice the web series brought to you by the makers of goth clothing or something like that.
Yeah.
And that they would, you know, get behind the show and maybe it would be hosted, you know, maybe you go to gothclothing.com and it would be, for the first run, it'd be a destination site. And you know, while you're buying all the cool clothing, you could click on the latest episode of Malice. Mm-hmm. And maybe these guys might be able to put up money. The trick is, you know, well, you could have said this in any advertising. It's like, well, okay, great. You guys gave us whatever you gave us, $10,000 or something. Even gave you $10,000. And I'll be quite frank, $10,000 isn't going to make a huge difference in my life. You know, it takes some of the burden off of production, but again, I'm not paying my electrical bill with that, you know. Mm-hmm. Does it get them, I mean, what does that need to get them? You know, 10 million views? You know, how much merchandise do they have to move to justify the fact that they gave this guy $10,000 to, you know, make a web series? So it's difficult to come up with that sort of data. You know, we can do that with cold casting. We say, yeah, we got 4.5 million views, or blah, 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 blah. What does that mean? How's that quantified? Because you're not going to make money by clicks. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not going to justify your budget by clicks. So either you're going to get a benefactor who's supporting the arts, or you're going to get a sponsor. Mm-hmm. And it's going to have to be one or the other. And, you know, I think it does work. There was a web series, I can't think of the name of it, but Symantec hosted a web series. It was produced by one of the CSI Miami producers.
Oh, you're Cybergeddon.
I saw the pilot. It was beautifully produced. It looked like a real TV show. Mm-hmm. But and it did success. It was one of these real soft product placement things where it didn't say brought to you by Cybertech, or you weren't seeing Cybertech products in the show. But it did create this pervasive sense of dread that your computer was vulnerable. And I better make sure that my virus protection is upgraded, because at the end of it, it's like click to upgrade your virus protection. And I wouldn't be surprised anybody who watched that show didn't eventually spend the $20 or whatever it costed to upgrade their virus software just because that's what it was about.
Yeah, nothing sells quite like fear.
Yeah, exactly. Fear, sex.
Right.
Fear and sex.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's going to be the theme of my next show: fear and sex.
See what I'm get for that one.
Yeah.
Malice season 3 and 4, it would definitely be a much more. It would definitely start to explore some sexual themes, because you know,
I like that one better than Hope Kills.
Well, yeah. Well, it definitely would, because Alex is a young woman, and those are some issues that she's kind of put on hold, you know, and now that she's coming through all this really intense teen stuff, dealing with her family and the fallout of this adventure. But so it definitely would get thematically into some darker stuff. I'm sorry, I'm straying all over the place. But I think just in the future, I got to wonder if it's going to be sponsorship. But, you know, the other thing that worries me about that is when it becomes sponsorship, you know, it's probably going to have to be brokered by an agency. An agency is going to take a cut of the pie. And therefore, when you get into those kinds of dollars, who are they going to go to? They're not going to go to me. They're going to go to Hollywood. They're going to go to Hollywood because there's a comfort level. And they're going to go to all those out-of-work TV directors, and they're going to start going to all those unemployed actors, and they're going to go to that machine. And they're going to shut out independent people like us. As soon as there's truly money in this game, I think they're going to blow us all out of the water. And it sounds kind of depressing, but I think that's...
Well, that's pretty much the history of things. So.
That's been the history of each new medium, yeah.
It is, yes.
As soon as they detect a way to make money, then they're going to jump into it, and nobody's going to find these little backwater shows.
Yeah, the sharks will circle once there's chum in the water.
Exactly right.
Yep.
And, you know, we're the pioneers with our axes, you know, hacking our way through a wilderness. Mm-hmm. And as soon as people go, there's gold in them there hills, they're going to lay down those rails, and they're going to roll those rails right over our bodies.
That's true, yeah. possible.
do a land grab. It sounds pessimistic, but it.
Now, are there any projects that each of you are working on now, after Malice, that you would like to mention?
Personally, not working on anything. Just a sort of independent, gathering film courage, I guess. Got myself a camera and working on some screenplays with personal value, but it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So you never know. But for now,
I'm hopeful for the next season of Malice myself, because Phil and I have been kicking ideas around for the storyline. But I did just wrap on a film called Singularity, which is a sci-fi, somewhat futuristic sci-fi thriller that it's in the vein of Terminator and Aliens. But once you get, there's a lot of posts. I'm not sure when it'll be. Maybe in the summer or the fall. But it's a very it's a high energy film, and I'm pretty proud of our work in that one too. So look out for that one, Singularity. I'll certainly update you guys when there's more information to come out about it.
All right, please do.
Yeah.
How about you, Phil? Is it all just Malice right now, or is there any other projects that you're thinking?
No, I've got a trash can filled with ideas. I have 2 or 3 web series that I'm considering exploring. It's a question of do I cultivate this hard-won audience that we have? Because some of the subject material I have is a little more intense and a little more violent than this, and I'm toying around because apparently the golden audience is the teen gaming audience. That seems to be, things that are successful. And I think to some extent Malice gathers a piece of that, but I'm wondering, there's this project that I'd written as a feature called Chomper, which is a pretty brutal, tough sci-fi revenge story. And,
biopic.
Yeah, whether or not that could be developed into a web series, but I'd love to get a sponsor for that. And it would be pretty tough. It would be extremely intense. So I'll be quite frank, I've got 3 other concepts in various stages of development. It's really, I'm at this point right now, literally the dust settled on this show. Not even, 2 weeks ago, Mark? I can't even remember when it was. Yeah. And so now I'm clearing out the sets. I'm archiving the media. I'm going, now what? And, we're going to try to cut Malice into a feature and release it on DVD and see if we can get it on Netflix and such. I have some potential contacts there. But, I'm of the schizophrenic mind. I'm an artist. Yes, I love that. But then I'm also a business person. Mm-hmm. And the business part of me stands back and goes, you're out of your frickin' mind. Yeah. This is not a business. This makes 0 financial sense. The accountant and the businessman's telling me, what the hell are you doing? Walk away from this now. The creative person goes, no, man, we're carving a new path. We're creating a new medium. We built an audience from nothing. We're actually doing things that very few people have done. We've had a fair amount of success. We survived. We're through it. The show looks great. It's getting good reviews. So, but I cannot divorce one from the other. It can't just be a self-indulged exercise. And the simple reality is, I got to pay my bills, and this show is not going to do that. I can only be charitable when business is doing great, what I do for a living. And, this year is a tough year. This economy is a tough economy. Mm-hmm. And the luxury of saying, oh, no, man, take 3 months off, spend another $12,000, shoot another season of Malice. Quite frankly, I can't afford to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a lot of web series creators face that issue.
Yeah, we've all run up against that. Now, where can our audience, our listeners, find Malice online?
Malice, right now, they can watch all 12 episodes, including the special on Coldcast TV. By mid-March, they'll be able to watch all 12 episodes on Blit and all 12 episodes on YouTube. So if they want to wait, everything's going to be, on playlists on YouTube, probably by March 6th. Right now, I think on YouTube we're up to 8, I believe, is up there. So that's where they can see it.
Okay.
And hopefully other places. I don't really know yet.
Great.
And then there's going to be a feature. And there's going to be a documentary. They're making it.
Then there's going to be a 3D version.
Yeah.
There you go.
Very funny.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time and talking with us. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. You guys are a lot of fun.
Oh, yes, definitely. I enjoyed it very much.
So there you go. A normal evening. Except the norm isn't the norm in my family.
Hi, I'm Ben Days, executive producer of Aiden 5, the web series, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
Thank you to Phil, Mark, and Rebekah for agreeing to chat with us, and we wish them luck with Malice and any future projects.
So that's it for today's GenreTainment. Check back next week with all new guests from our favorite films, TV shows, novels, and web series.
Including director Charles Wilkinson, who, besides directing Highlander the series and many other excellent projects, has also written the book The Working Director, How to Arrive, Survive, and Thrive in the Director's Chair. Also coming up is our fun interview with Jerry Kokich, one of the stars of the action comedy web series Adventures of Super 7.
Don't forget, you can check out all of our past episodes in the archives at sci-fi-pulseradio.com. You can also check out the other great shows on this channel like SFP Now, The Roundtable, and Jeff Trek.
GenreTainment will be back right here on this channel at sci-fi-pulseradio.com next week. Thanks to everyone for listening.
Until next time.